Hi, and welcome back to Pizza Clickers, Lesson 3. We're going to do stuff a little bit out of order compared to what we saw in class. The first thing I want to look at is this piece of code right here on the pizza. What we have is I start the game. When I click on the pizza, I have clicked now. Nothing happens until I let go. It's actually possible to click, move the mouse away, and then let go, and it will spawn over here because the slice spawns at the point of the mouse cursor. We wait until the mouse is down and I'm touching the mouse pointer, and that's what happens when I click. And then we wait until not mouse down, so I can move my mouse in the meantime. What I want to do is I want to take wait until not mouse down first. That way the game will just make sure that we're not in the middle of another click. Then I want to split this one up into two different sections. So I'm just going to wait until the mouse is down. That means now I started a click. And I'm going to say if the pizza is touching the mouse pointer, that means I am clicking and the mouse is on the pizza, then I want to do this. So this goes a little bit against the gatekeeper principle that I'm talking about, but it's okay in this case. So now when I click, the slice spawns immediately, which is exactly what I wanted. Another thing I want to do here now, I want to finish the pizza right now, is here we have change slices by 1. I actually want to create a new variable, and we call it slices per click, and it's for all sprites. Okay, and I'm just going to set change slices by slices per click, and that variable needs to have a value. So I'm going to go to the backdrop and I'm going to set slices per click to 1, like that. And now I go to the game, I start, and I can see here how many slices per click I get. I would like that to move down here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to have some information about the waitresses. We need some information about the waitresses in order to decide how many slices of pizza do they add. So I'm going to make some variables for the waitress. The first thing we need to know is how many waitresses do I have. So I'm going to add an amount variable. It starts with an underscore because that's how I remember that it's for this sprite only. But I still set this check here and OK. Now I also need a variable that says how much does it cost. So I'm going to have a price variable for the waitress, again with an underscore and for the sprite only. I'm going to have a production variable underscore for this sprite only. The production variable means how many slices does each waitress produce per second. And then because the price of the waitresses have to go up with every waitress I buy or hire, I have to have a multiplier to tell me how much should the price go up every time. So again, for this sprite only, and an underscore like this. When I start the game, I would like to set these values to something. So I'm going to take a green flag here. I'm going to take the 4 variables, amount to 0. I'm going to set price to 15. I'm going to set production to 0.1. And I'm going to set multiplier to, in Cookie Clicker, which this is obviously based on, it is 1.15. But let's change it a little bit just to see what happens. So we're going to set 1.2. And then I'm going to have another. Now we need to actually produce the the slices. So I'm going to have green flag more. I'm going to put a forever loop. And the thing I want to do is I want to add some slices. So I'm going to say change slices. And how many slices should I get every second? I should get the production of each waitress. So I have a production here, multiplied by how many waitresses do I have. So that's amount. And I want to do that every second. So I'm going to add a 1 second delay here. Let's change. Right now there's no way to buy waitresses. So let's add a few waitresses here to start with. So I'm going to add 4 and let's see what happens. Start. And every second I get 0.4 slices because I have 4 waitresses and they each produce 0.1. Now the way Scratch works is that if I have 2 green flags, I cannot be certain which one is started first. So we could imagine that this one is started before this one, which means if it's the first time I ever play the game, both of these are going to be 0, which would be fine. But if it's not the first time, Scratch remembers the values of variables from last time I played the game. So if I was super late in the game last time and I had 100 waitresses and now I restart, I would get one time I would get 100 waitresses production. So I want to make sure that this block, the left block, is executed before the right block. There's a trick to this. We're going to go to the backdrop and we're going to add an event. We're going to broadcast a message. The message we're going to broadcast is setup. So this was the wrong one. We're going to take broadcast and wait. Setup like that. So after we have initialized these variables, we're going to broadcast setup and wait. So we're going to go back here, and instead of having a green flag where we set these values for the waitress, we're going to say when I receive setup, do that. Now all of the waitresses and any other billing we have is going to set the correct variables in the backdrop again after it has finished setting up everything, and we know that because we are waiting for everything to finish. Now we're going to broadcast a new message that we're going to call start. And this is not wait, this is just do it. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to say when I receive start this forever loop here. It doesn't look like it changes anything. It just makes sure that we run this before we start running this. So the game will look the same when we play. We still can't buy hire any waitresses, so let's make sure we can do that. What we want to do is when I click the waitress, I want to hire one more. So I'm going to say when this sprite is clicked, I just want to pay the price for a new waitress. So we're going to change slices by, I want to change it by the price of a waitress. So we have the price here. But if I do this, I'm actually adding the price of the waitress. I'm not subtracting it. So I need to change this into a negative number. I could do this. I will say 0 minus price and put here. That is completely fine, but that is not what I want to do today. What I want to do today instead is I'm going to set slices to, let's find the subtract, and then I can take the old value of slices and subtract the price of the waitress. So this says take the current value of slices, subtract the price. After you have done that, set slices to that number, which is why we are allowed to have slices on both sides here. And now I can delete this one again. So I have subtracted the price. Now I'm going to increase the amount of waitresses by 1, and that should be easy. Just change amount by 1. And finally, I want to change the price of the next waitress. So I'm going to set price to, and we want to take the current price and multiply it by the multiplier. So we're going to take price multiplied, this is a multiplication here, and there's a minus up here, multiplier, like this. And now if I start the game, I have 0.8 slices, which is not enough to do anything, and I don't want to have to sit here and click many times before I can test something. So let's just for now go into the backdrop, and at the beginning of the game we're going to say we're going to have 1,000 slices to make it a lot easier for us to test the game. So let's try again. Here we have the price of the waitress is 15. When I buy a waitress, now I have 5 waitresses, and the next one will cost 18. The next one will cost 21. So it goes up by 20% per time. And let's see what happens when I get to the limit here. Now I have a negative number of slices, which is not exactly what I want. So we need some kind of logic to stop that from happening. I'm going to go in here. When this sprite is clicked, I just want to make sure that I have enough slices to hire a new waitress. One way to do that is just going to say if slices is higher than the price, that means I have more slices than it costs, then do this. Now we have this code inside an if statement. I don't like that. At some point I'm going to make a video about that. I want to use a pattern called a gatekeeper, which prevents us from having nested if statements. And the way it looks is I'm just going to take this one and move out here. I'm going to say if slices is less than price, that means I do not have enough. Then I'm going to stop this script. This script is just this current block of lines. So if I do not have enough slices, I will get in here and this will stop and I will exit it. If I had more slices than the current price, I would not go in here. So I would go down here below and I would execute these lines. Now this script is a little bit longer. It's like 1 extra line, I think. But it's a lot easier to read without the nested if statements, and it will work. So now if I click waitresses, and I'm clicking now, and I cannot buy anything until I get to, oh my god, 192. Let's see. There we go. And now I can buy one more. Now that I have enough slices to start with, I don't actually need to have 4 waitresses to start anymore. So let's change this to 0. I want to have all the same code on the chef. I want the same variables, and I want basically the same code as this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and move it to the chef. If I grab it with my mouse and drag it on top of the chef, if I can, sometimes this is a little bit cumbersome. Let's see if this is better. Here is the chef that does this wiggly thing like that, and I do it with setup as well. See, it's not removed here, it means copy it to the chef. And I do the same with this. And now I go to the chef. The variables that were in the code that I copied in are also created automatically. So now the chef also has amount and multiplier and price and production. You see, if I click a different sprite, they're not here, so they belong to the chef. I want to have different setup for him. So I'm going to say the price is 100, production is 1, and the multiplier is 1.1. Let's see if this works. I click and I buy chefs, so the price went down here, and I get a lot of slices per second. Let's make sure that I can actually see what's going on, because this is starting to get a little bit messy. So let's go to the waitress. Let's move her over to here maybe, and move the chef here. The waitress, I want the waitress amount here. Okay, so let's move her some more. And I want the price here. And for the chef, I want the chef amount here, and I want the chef price here. And let's go back to the waitress and hide production and multiplier. I don't want those. It looks a little bit nicer. So now when I start the game, I can actually see I have 0 chefs and he costs 100, and I buy 1, cost 110, I have 1, and my cookies goes up by 1 per second. Let's buy a few more, and let's buy some waitresses. Let's say I want the cookie production to happen 2 times per second instead of 1. So I'm here on the waitress. I'm going to take this number that the slice is going to be changed by, and I'm going to divide it by 2, because I want 2 times per second, like this. And then obviously, because now I only get half, I need to get it 2 times per second, so I'm going to write 0.5 here. And let's start the game. Let's buy a waitress and a chef. And let's look at the numbers up here. What's wrong? Well, first of all, I forgot to change the same code on the chef. So now every time we want to change this aspect, we need to remember to change it on every building we have. And if we have many, that's going to be a hassle. The second problem is that these are actually not synchronized. It's difficult to see, but the doot 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 from the waitress and the doot 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 from the chef does not happen at the same time exactly. So you can see there's a small discrepancy, and it's not even consistent discrepancy. So they slide away from each other slowly. We might talk about that later. But the solution right now is simply that we do not want this calculation to happen individually on the waitress and the chef. We're going to have a new sprite that we're not going to show in the game, but it's just going to have some logic for calculating this. So I'm going to upload a sprite. I have prepared a small calculator. I have shared that in our chat here. And I want to make sure it's not shown on the screen, so I'm going to click hide here. And just to be double sure, I'm going to say when we start, hide it, like this. Now I want to have this calculator be in charge of updating my number of slices. So I'm going to say when I receive start, because start is when everything has been set up already from the backdrop. I'm going to make a forever loop, and we're going to say I want to change how many slices I have here, and I'm going to do it twice. I want to do it 1 time for the waitress and 1 time for the chef. And what I want to do is I want to multiply how many waitresses by how many production and how many chefs by how many production. So now I need to get the correct value from the waitress. I'm going to go to sensing. There is a way to get a value from a different sprite, and it's this one here. Now this looks like we can just get the backdrop number from the stage, but I can actually change which sprite do I want something from. And I say I want something from the waitress. And now from the waitress I can get some information. I can get its position, its direction, its costume name, costume number, size. I don't know what volume is, but these I know. And these down here are the ones we created that for this sprite only. So I can take the amount of waitresses and multiply by the production of the waitresses. And I'm going to do the same down here. Now I want you to notice that when I change waitress, so first of all, I have to first choose where do I want it from. If I say, if it was on the stage, now there is no amount. So first we have to do the right one and say, I want the chef and I want the amount. Now I'm going to duplicate this one up here. I'm going to put it here and I'm going to say, I'm going to change this to the chef. And when I change it, this one resets to the first item in the list, which is going to really make the result strange. So let's go down and change that to production as well. And then in here is where I want my weight. It's in control. Wait. 1 second right now. Actually, let's just immediately change it to half a second. So I'm going to take this, put here, and divide by 2, like this. Do the same thing here, and wait half a second. Now my calculator is updating my number of slices, and my waitress is doing it, and my chef is doing it. That's not good. So I'm just going to go in here, and I'm gonna say, the waitress, thank you for your work. That does not need it anymore. And on the chef, the same thing. When I receive start, where it updates the number of slices, I'm going to delete that. Now when we run the game, and I buy a waitress and a chef, these update at the same time. In class, we talked about how many times per second do we want it to update, and we wanted it to update 5 times per second. So we're going to divide by 5 here and 5 here. I'm not sure if we want to change it later, so I'm just going to down here, instead of writing 0.2, I'm going to write 1 divided by 5, because then we only need to update. It's easy. We don't have to calculate. It's just easier for us. So now when I buy a chef, it updates my number of slices immediately, and everything looks good. The last thing we did in our code was that I want to see on the screen here how many slices do I get per second. So I'm going to make a variable called slices per second. It's for all sprites. When I move into this loop here, I'm going to show the way I explain it in class. I could say set slices to 0. No, change set slices per second to 0. And then change slices per second by how many slices does the waitresses produce, and how many slices per second do the chefs produce. And then finally, I'm going to say change slices by slices per second, but not every. I do this 5 times per second, so I want this to be divided by 5. And I'm going to take my slices per second here and divide that by 5. And now this divided by 5 here, I don't want anymore, because this is how many per second I get. So I'm going to take this one and delete. And I'm going to take this division by 5 and delete. So first I calculate how many slices do I make per second, and then I take 1/5 of that and add to my slices, and then I wait 1/5 of a second. Here we have set slices per second to 0, and then change slices per second. Let's say this is 5. Set to 0 and change by 5 is the same as just setting it to 5 directly. So I can take this one and move up here, set slices per second to waitresses. And then I'm going to delete this line of code here. This line of code I'm going to delete and move these back. So it's set and change to get slices per second, and then change slices by slices per second and wait a fifth of a second. And it should still work. I can click, and if I get waitresses and chefs, I can see slices per second go up. I want that at the bottom of the screen, so let me go in and fix that. I want this on the left, and I want this one over here, like that. There is some optional homework if you want. You can add a few more buildings. We talked about in class what buildings we want. I'm going to try to find some images for those kinds of buildings. And next time we will make the game look a little bit better. Thank you.